Well, good afternoon. Time for another JMARS quick demo. Today we're going to talk about how you actually go about using the loading and saving of sessions and individual layers or groups of layers. So we're going to walk through kind of a hypothetical that I created like I was doing some research. So here I am on Pluto, which is kind of cool. In case you didn't know, I'm going to really quickly just pop this up. We actually have a decent amount of data from the new Horizons mission to Pluto, 300 meter per pixel base maps, elevation data, things like that. So, and this is taking forever, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, but you can see that you can actually look at Pluto, at least the data that is available, because remember, it was a pretty fast flyby. They only got one look at it, and so they didn't get the entire surface, unfortunately. All right, back to what we're going to do here. Sometimes when you're working in JMARS, you're not just looking at things, you're making things. You're creating data, you're outlining things, you're counting things. And I'm going to do a couple of different things like that. I've already started. So you can see I created a custom shape layer so that I could outline a region on Pluto where I wanted to do a crater study. It's actually rectangular by lat long. Hold on a sec, I'll show you. So you can see I tried to follow the lines of latitude and longitude. I actually made the grid when I was looking at it differently, so it doesn't quite work. Doesn't matter. That's what it is. That's the place I want to count craters. And you can see I also started counting craters. I was doing that with the crater counting layer. All right. And in fact, like I'll go ahead and count some more craters. There's one. Come here. And someday we should look at why isn't it letting me draw more craters? No, it was, but it wasn't letting me know. I think this is a Zoom thing. Okay. So I'm busy counting all the craters that I see. And it turns out that, let's say that I need to quit for the day. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I want to make sure all of my information for this session gets saved out. So you would come over to the JMARS file menu and choose Save Session As. And the real intent here is it will save your entire, everything about your session that we have right here in front of us, where you're looking, what projection you're looking at, what layers you have loaded, things, what body you're on, that sort of thing. So I'm going to hit save, because it's the fastest way to kind of reset things. So I come back the next day, and I have another way to show you how to do this too. Come on, JMARS, you can do it. Okay. So I'm going to come back into JMARS. And of course, JMARS remembers that Pluto was the last body I was looking at. And so it will remember that. We'll be on Pluto. But where are my layers, right? Well, I can go up to the file menu and say load session. And let's see, I think I made a Pluto folder. Here it is. There it is. There's the file I just saved moments ago. I hit open, and it will load all of the information that I was working with, including it remembered to load the Pluto global color mosaic, which that's my favorite Pluto layer. I like it better than than this one, just the boring grayscale. And it remembered that I had that layer in my session, even though I wasn't making changes to that layer. I was just showing it, but it's nice that everything comes back. Honestly, the only thing that I wish there was an option for, hint developers, I guess that's me, is that it doesn't resize the actual, it doesn't resize the window to the size that I was working at. I kind of think that would be cool, because it takes me a while to get it back there. I had to move things around, kind of get everything back where I wanted it. Oh, no. Okay, anyway. But here I am, I'm back, I can work and pick up where I left off yesterday doing my counts and things. So by the way, before we go any further, I will tell you that you can actually launch JMARS. I'm not going to do it because it takes a while, but over here on my desktop somewhere, oh, I thought I had, there it is, right here. I have this file. It's the same file I saved out earlier, but it's in a different place. You can right click on that and say open with JMARS 5, and it will launch JMARS itself with that file. You wouldn't have to go to the file menu and do a load session. It'll just bring it up, okay? So as you can see, all the goodies get saved out just the way you had them. But it's also true that sometimes you're doing work, like I'm doing more crater counting, right? Counting more craters. I'm going to do them. I'm going to use the, why am I, oh, see, I fooled myself. I was in the crater study area of my custom shape layer. I'm just going to pretend that I'm counting craters. Ooh, there's one. Oh, there's another one. I'm not even changing the size, but don't tell anybody. This looks like it could be a big crater basin. All right, so you get the idea. So now I've gone through and created more craters. Oh, I don't want to save my whole session, but I can come up here and say, I just want to save layers. And I can choose to just pick the crater counting layer and hit save. And it'll say, okay, where do you want that? And I can put it in my same Pluto folder. And this one I'll call Pluto craters. And that saved out a layer file just for me. So this is a good idea to do if you're doing a lot of work over several hours in JMARS, even though we do have an auto recover feature. So if JMARS crashes or your power goes out or something, you can get back to where you were working pretty close to the session you had. I think it saves a new version out to your computer about every hour. But if you want to be sure, or you want to maybe open these on another computer later, always saving a new version of the layers you're changing is a really great idea. It's just like hitting save in Microsoft Word every 10 minutes. Never a bad idea. Okay. All right. So as you could see, there are other things you can do when you're saving layers. You can choose from any of the current layers you have loaded. You can pick, a couple of them because you're modifying them. You can pick the global color mosaic. I don't see any reason to because it's already supported inside JMARS. But you can save and load those repeatedly anytime. One thing that you have to know that if, let's say we go over to, let's go to Mars. It is our favorite body in JMARS, of course. Not because it's called JMARS, but well, maybe because it's called JMARS.
They're all our favorite bodies, Paul.
Absolutely. But, even among equals, right? So, oh, this is my funnest way to load up Mars. I love this. So let's say I'm working on Mars and I'm like, oh, I want to go work on that Pluto stuff. When I actually choose to load my session with the Pluto session, it also switches body automatically. It says, are you sure you're going to go to switch to Pluto? I'm like, yes. And it switches bodies to Pluto and loads all my session data just the way I had it when I was here last time. Very cool. Individual layers, you cannot load those on other bodies either. It just won't let you. If you're over on Mars and you try to load a layer, it will just say, no. That layer is for Pluto. You can't have it on Mars. I was racking my brain before this tutorial to think of, were there any contexts where a user would want to do that? And I suppose if you were doing a comparative study between two different bodies, let's say icy bodies in the outer solar system, and you wanted to look at just their polar regions, let's say above 70 degrees latitude, you might create some shapes you wanted that when you go to study the next moon, you just load those shapes. In another tutorial sometime, we'll talk about how you can propagate things like a custom shape layer, like where you've drawn an outline, as I have, and move it to other bodies. It's too much to go into today, but there are ways to do it. You can always shoot me an email at paul.wren@asu.edu, or you can wait for the tutorial when it comes out. All right, are there any questions about what I've talked about today?
Yeah, cool, Paul. Is that a demo?
So this is a demo. Yep. So let me more instead of a question, let me just make a couple quick statements. So if it's not obvious why someone might choose between saving a session versus a layer, I think you explained the kind of how and what it does. But you save a layer if you want to be able to load it in without obliterating the session you're working on. So for example, if you have this creator layer that you're adding to, but next time you want to load in some different base layers because you're zoomed in this time and you want some higher resolution data, you can load that layer in without it replacing all of your other things and changing back to exactly the state of that session. So the session is kind of a, like exactly you said, save the state, let me restore exactly at the state. Whereas the layer is save this data, let me add this data back in again. And they're very similar, but it's a little subtle difference.
And I just did it. I just loaded my crater counting layer I had saved, and it didn't obliterate my current crater counting layer. It brought in another layer. That's a really great point. Thank you, Scott.
And so that can be a great thing also. If you want to share that data with a colleague, you can save that layer, or you could save the entire session. But if they want to bring it into their own environment and look at it with what the work they're doing, the layer file can be an easier way to do that than forcing them to work in exactly the same. But if you want to say, hey, I have this whole stack of stuff that shows something, and I want you to see exactly what I'm looking at, sending that session file to somebody else can be a great way to do that. And the other comment I wanted to do real quick on your shape outline that you commented on following the lat long lines, but when you bring the lat long layers up, it clearly doesn't follow the longitude lines entirely. That's because you defined it with 4 points, right? And so as your projection changes, it's drawing shortest point between those points. If you didn't want it to do that, you could add intermediate points to force it to actually match the grid lines.
Yes.
If that's something that anyone ever deals with, and that's an issue for them. I just wanted to add that clarification.
And I appreciate that. It didn't, and I did follow the lines of latitude, right? Because I know that gets really squirrely. I've never done a region this big before, and if you're doing a smaller one, you can kind of get away with it on the lines of longitude.
Exactly, yeah. A smaller region is not a big a deal, but a big region, if you want it to still look consistent across projections, just add some intermediate points in there.
Yep,
and that'll basically force it to follow that. So
yep.
Otherwise, I think that was great presentation, Paul. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. I mean, do you want me to record another one? I can do another one offline